E ta hois are ni natin da al kidigi aro da isenol tsangi she Rudy Archibald in Shiedo, the Navajo Nation Division of Natural Resources, executive director. Aro the president of the Navajo Nation, Jonathan Nez, banashnish. Aro apenda eskisindasi na the nekashina ashi bankish da hasnet da aro kareya isnin aro bikishin a nasco non-doldes koho so good afternoon. My name is Rudy Archibald. I'm the executive director for the Navajo Nation Division of Natural Resources, and this is a traditional Navajo hunting seminar that's sponsored by the Office of the First Lady and Second Lady of the Navajo Nation. And we'd like to welcome all of you that were with us this morning and listening to traditional Navajo hunters and their methods of hunting. And we continue on this afternoon, and we have another very interesting part of Navajo hunting. And so we're going to first start off with Vernonda Howard. She's an office specialist for the Navajo Nation Department of Fish and Wildlife, and she's going to bring to us the hunting application process. And then we'll move on to John Montjoy, who's a wildlife conservation officer, wildlife law enforcement of the Department of Fish and Wildlife, and he's going to present to us the Navajo Nation Fish and Wildlife regulations and the laws accordingly. And then after that, we're going to have a wildlife biologist from the Navajo Nation Department of Fish and Wildlife. Her name is Jessica Fort, and she's going to present to us the data from big game management. In other words, how many deer are out there? How many elk do we have? And how many antelope we have? What are their challenges? And based on all that information, the hunting applications are released. Like Unit 5, someone will tell you where hunting Unit 5 is and how many deer hunting applications or permits will be allowed because, and why, for the hunting season. And so that all this information is coming right away. And then Gloria Tom, she's the director for the Navajo Nation Department of Fish and Wildlife. She will present to all of us the annual youth hunt for young Navajo hunters. Many of them will be their first time, and they'll go out and they'll be taken out in the field by a mentor and taught how to hunt. So, and then when we conclude, I guess I'll get back on and we'll finish our program. So at this time, I will turn it over to Vernonda Howard, the office specialist for the Navajo Nation Fish and Wildlife Department. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vernonda Howard. My clans are Honolaki, Nishli, Tortupunja Bashishti, the Bethlehem Dishache, Kiaani Edashanala. I am the office specialist here with Navajo Fish and Wildlife. I am also the individual that handles and maintains the big game hunt database. I take care of the application process that includes the screening, data entry, and the hunt draws, and also the refunds. And I would like to present this afternoon the hunt application process with the Navajo Fish and Wildlife Department. And I'm going to present my presentation. Okay. All right, hunt application process. This is myself, Vernonda Howard. I'm an office specialist with Department of Fish and Wildlife. First of all, we do have annually a hunt proclamation. And in this hunt proclamation, it states the general information about the hunting regulations. It also contains the season dates, the fees and units in which the hunts are allowed, and how many permits are available for each of the hunts. And it's published annually. And usually the general hunting proclamation is available. We usually post it first on our website. It does go through processes of approval. And once it's approved by the Navajo Nation president, that's where we post it on our website here. Our website is the first bullet, which is www.nndfw.org. And that's where you can find our proclamation, or you can request it by our department email, which is at hunt@nndfw.org. And then there's a third way you can also request for the hunt proclamation, which is the newspaper form. And that's after it's published. And you can call our front office at 928-871-6450. And we can mail it to you. Just give us your name and your mailing address, and we will mail the proclamation to you. So that's the first thing you would do. You would check for the proclamation online or in person. And like I said, this proclamation has the hunt regulations in there, and it also contains the season dates, fees, and other regulations. Next, you would call our office for your hunt eligibility. We do have a hunt eligibility listing, which is if you're eligible to hunt on the Navajo Nation. First, we do have the survey cards. If you turned in your survey card before or by the deadline date. And then there's the hunt violation, and that is with the wildlife law enforcement here with the Navajo Fish and Wildlife. And then the third one is the Western Compact List, or also known as the Interstate Wildlife Violator Compact List, which that Interstate Wildlife Violator Compact is an agreement that recognizes suspension of hunting, fishing, and trapping licenses in the member state. So which this means is that illegal activities in one state can affect a person's hunting or fishing privileges in all participating states. So this hunt eligibility list includes all these three: the survey card, the hunt violation, and the Western Compact List. And once we process your application and you are eligible to hunt, you can go ahead and you can request for our hunt application. There is 3 ways you can request for a hunt application. First one is also downloading it from our department website, or you can request by department email, or you can call our front office. And we ask that when you are applying that you write clearly on the application, or if you can use the computer and type in your information, which will be clearly, we can read the information and we can enter those information into our database, and it'll be accurate and correct. And this is our hunting application. There are 4 hunt choices you can apply for, which are on the top of the application. And then there are 4 slots, or 4, you can apply 4 times. 4 applicants can apply on 1 application. And we do need your original signature on the application if you are mailing it in, or if you are sending it through our hunt email, you can do the electronic signature. We are allowing that. And it's always best to do the checklist, go by the checklist, make sure that everything is checked off and all your documents are attached to your application. And if you are sending a money order, it does tell you where to send or make the application payable to, which is the Navajo Nation. We do not accept personal checks, only money orders or cashier's checks. And then you must, according to the Navajo hunting regulation, you must be at least 12 years of age to hunt during the hunt, the starting of the hunt, 12 and over. And then if you are applying, and we do indicate that if you are born after 1970, that you do need a hunter's education certification number that you need to also put on your hunt application. If any of these information are missing, we do return your application to you with the money orders or your documentations back to your address. Okay, there are several types of permit types and documentations that you need to attach. The first one is you can apply as a Navajo permit, which means that you need to indicate on the application your Navajo census number. And then there is a Navajo spouse permit, which is meaning the non-Navajo spouse. They need to attach proof of marriage and proof of marriage documentation, which means marriage license, a copy of the Navajo spouse's CIB, and then an affidavit stating you are married to this individual. And when you are doing that, the affidavit has to be current, and the date is specified in each of the annual proclamation. It indicates that if you are going to be using that, you have to have the affidavit stated after this certain date. And then for Navajo veterans, we do need a copy of your DD 214 document, or if you were honorably discharged, and we do need a certificate stating that you are honorably discharged. And then there is the Navajo Senior Citizen Permit. We do need a copy of your driver's license or a copy of your CIB, which indicates your date of birth on there. Both the Navajo Veteran and Navajo Senior Citizen permits, they are 50% reduced on the permit fee. And we do have the non-Navajo permit. It's just anybody who does not have a Navajo census number. And then we do offer the Navajo Mobility Impaired permit. And on there, you do need a current doctor's statement indicating your disability or mobility impaired card. which is not the placard that you put on your mirror. This is also a 50% permit fee reduction. And the Navajo mobility permit is only available to Navajo tribal members with a census number. And then the next slide is hunt choice selection. We do have the general deer hunts. When we say general deer hunts, that indicates you can put archery deer, general deer, and if you are applying as a youth hunter, you can also include the archery deer and the general deer on one hunt application. And we do have the general elk hunts, which are the archery elk, EA, muzzleloader elk, EM, general elk, EG, and we also do have the youth elk, EY. That's also the same thing as for the youth hunter. If they are applying, they can indicate the EA, EM, and EG on one application. And then we do have the trophy hunts. You can select up to 3 trophy deer hunts and 3 trophy elk hunts, but they have to be on separate applications for the deer and elk. And then we do have the Navajo mobility impaired hunts. In the proclamation, it states that we put aside 5 general deer permits and 5 general elk permits. And if we do have more than 5 individuals, we do a draw for the mobility impaired hunts. And then payment methods. We do accept credit or debit card payments. If you are turning it in through our hunt email, you can download a credit or debit card authorization form from our website. For these debit and credit card payments, all we do is we charge the application fee. For this year's hunt season, it was $15. So for every hunt that you apply for, we charge $15 each. And also, if you are drawn, then that's when we charge the rest of the permit costs. We do accept money orders or cashier's check. You have to pay the full amount for the highest paid price hunt code on your application. So for an example, for this year's hunt season, if you applied for a general deer and then your second choice was a archery deer, the general deer is $52. And so you would pay that price, the full amount as the money order, $52 for your hunt choice. And this is the credit card authorization form that you would download. You would fill in all the information and attach it to your application. You can either mail it in or email us. And then after everything is done, the draw process happened. You were drawn and you were sent your permits. We do the refunds. The refunds is mainly individuals who paid with money orders. We do minus the application fee, which is $15. And we do process the refund checks at the end of the month in August. These are for the individuals who were not drawn, or if they overpaid their hunts, that's what we refund the overpayment. But there are some refunds that we do not refund back individuals. It does state in the proclamation. So that's the antelope hunts, and then the special once in a lifetime hunts, which are the bighorn sheep, the Navajo special deer, and the Navajo special elk hunts. Those are non-refundable. And also we do have refunds for youth hunters if they were not successful in their draw. And in some of them, they do not have like a valid state ID or any way to refund or to process their refund. That's where we indicate to the individual while they're turning in their application to refund to the parent. So they have to indicate on the application the parent's name and their address. And that's where we'll go ahead and refund that youth hunter in that way. And this concludes my presentation on how to apply for a hunt with the Navajo Nation. If you have any further questions on the process, you can be referred to any of these links and phone numbers. You can check our website for more information. And then you can also email us with the hunt email. And then we also have the department phone number, which is the front office. And then we also have a department fax number where you can fax your information. And then if anything else, you can also contact our Division of Natural Resource Dispatch, our dispatch area. And these are the different areas and different ways you can contact us about any general hunt information. And once we receive that, we'll go ahead and refer it to the proper individual to answer your questions. And that concludes my presentation, and thank you, Ahe'hee.
Good afternoon, and thank you to Vernonda Howard for the information on the hunt application process. We will move into our next session with Mr. John Montjoy, who will present on Navajo Fish and Wildlife regulations and laws. Thank you.
Hi, Sonia, this is John. Are you there?
Yes, John.
My start video is not allowing me to connect. It says the host. John Montjoy, let me introduce myself. My name is John Montjoy. I'm one of the conservation officers out on the Navajo Nation. I've been working out here for just over, almost going on 5 years now. I'm a retired state police officer out of the state of New Mexico. So I've got almost 30 years of law enforcement experience. So I kind of feel it's a bit of an honor to kind of go over the laws and regulations for here on the Navajo Nation, and share that with the people out there so that they have a good encounter, a good experience, and don't have a negative encounter with one of the other white wardens or myself. So kind of starting off, Ms. Howard kind of talked about a little bit. We have some proclamations, and by law, which is stated in the regulations and the proclamation, is all fish and wildlife are the property of the Navajo Nation. There's laws, regulations, and proclamations that outline the rules for harvesting of wildlife on the Navajo Nation. And again, you can get those through our office. Every year we come out with a big game proclamation. We also have proclamations for trapping, small game hunting, bird hunting, waterfowl hunting, ducks and whatnot. But basically all fish and wildlife are property of the Navajo Nation, and you need permits to harvest and or take of those animals. We're going to kind of go over a multitude of them, but not probably every one of them. It'll just take too long, but we'll see where we can get going. Review some common laws and regulations relating to hunting and procedures for dealing with wildlife. Some of the laws are a little bit complex, so if people are learning how to hunt or trying to figure out the laws and they're having questions, it's best to contact the office and talk to one of the conservation officers themselves to just get clarification on some of these laws. I will try to kind of go through a bunch of these, and if you have any further questions at the end of the presentation, I do have contact information for our office. And again, if you're not sure what a law means or how it's worded, reach out to the department or one of the conservation officers, and we'll try to clarify that as best as possible. Bottom line, it's the hunter and the outdoorsman's responsibility to know the laws and regulations prior to hunting or boating and or fishing. That way they don't get themselves in trouble with us. So let's kind of go over some of these. The hunting and trapping laws are enacted by the Navajo Nation are found in our trapping and regulations booklet and in our proclamations. Boating laws, we have a separate book for that, for the fishing and boating. Bottom line, the wildlife here on Navajo Nation belongs to the Navajo people. We have a multitude of different types of game and or other wildlife that are non-game. They migrate through here, some are native. But kind of the bottom line, it belongs to everybody. All the wildlife and animals belong to you and me. And so to harvest and or take any of these animals, a permit is required to hunt, fish, or trap on the Navajo Nation for the game animals. So prior to going out and partaking in one of these activities, Ms. Howard kind of went through the process of obtaining the permits. So when you're out in the field, you must have that permit with you while you're taking of the wildlife. And taking is defined as hunting, capturing, killing in any manner, or the attempt to hunt, capture, or kill in any manner of any wildlife. So Ms. Howard kind of talked about a little bit that anybody born after 1970 is required to take hunter's education and successfully complete that prior to hunting on the Navajo Nation. There's a lot, for a lot of beginners, that's probably the best way to kind of start off the process of learning how to hunt and gaining that knowledge and information prior to going to the field. So you can be younger than the age of 12 to hunt, to take hunter's education, just that if you're going to hunt big game, you've got to be 12 years old or older. Kind of one of the laws in regards to that is if you're hunting with an adult, if that adult already has a permit for taking, say, small game, that hunter that's younger than him under that permit can participate in hunting. So the Navajo Nation, we accept hunter's education certification through anywhere in the world, basically, or anywhere in the United States. Here at Navajo Fish and Wildlife, we teach through the Arizona Hunter Education Program. And so one of the requirements to successfully complete the whole program is participation not just in classroom and or an online class, but the completion of a range day where you interact with an instructor, where you actually do live fire with ammunition on targets, and then you also do scenario-based instruction out in the field. Right now, due to pandemic stuff, there's a big waiting list to complete the range days, because we're allowing there's a lot of online that's occurring, is just trying to get caught up on the range day stuff itself. So with that being said, we have an exemption currently due to pandemic, that if you successfully have completed the online portion, you still can apply for our big game hunting. And so you can take that range day at a later date to finalize and complete the hunter's education. Another program that is for a lot of the residents or a lot of the Navajo people is New Mexico's hunter education. You can take New Mexico's online or in an in-person class. And again, we will accept any hunter education course through the United States. The only thing about taking New Mexico's course online is you have to be a New Mexico resident. So a lot of the times we get asked, where can hunters hunt? So the laws state that a hunter can hunt within the interior boundaries of the Navajo Nation on any trust lands and allotments with the allottee's permission. Trust lands are considered public land to the property for properly hunted hunters on the Navajo Nation. A lot of times we get conflicts with grazing permit holders denying access, but a grazing permit holder cannot deny access to trust lands. So yeah, if you're properly permitted to hunt on the Navajo Nation, you can hunt on any trust lands. It's considered like public property to hunt. So one of the other things that we kind of commonly run into is obviously motor vehicles. There's a little caption of somebody in the back of the truck. That is illegal. So we're going to kind of go through some of the other regulations and laws right now. It is unlawful to shoot from, take, and or attempt to take any wildlife from a motor vehicle, except for persons that may be disabled. And so if you're disabled or have some medical issues that you can document through a doctor, what an individual can do is write a letter to our department manager requesting an exemption so that they can utilize a motor vehicle or an ATV to hunt with. So we do have an exemption, just that it has to go through our department manager for that exemption. With that also being said, it's against the law to shoot from, along, or across any graded or paved road. And it's also illegal to hunt with artificial light. And most of the time, those are people out hunting at night, trying to use a spotlight, flashlight, or a motor vehicle, casting headlights into areas where animals may be. So again, shooting at or hunting is against the law if you're shooting from, along, or against a paved road. A road is defined as a maintained right-of-way. So kind of give a little bit of a description. Both this picture up here, this road, even though it's dirt, it's graded, it's paved. So if you're out with a motor vehicle, you would have to get off of this road to lawfully shoot. And of course, any type of paved road or maintained highway, you've got to get away from the roads to discharge a gun. One of the other things that we commonly get questions on is hunting near homes or somebody shooting near homes. So by Navajo Nation law, it is unlawful to shoot within 1/2 mile of any residence without written permission of the owner, or within 1/2 mile of a designated campground or recreational area. A little provision down in the new lands is no shooting within 1 mile of a range housing unit or one of the paved roads going into those housing clusters. So a residence is any occupied dwelling, house, cabin, lodge, obviously businesses across the Navajo Nation. So one of the things that we run into out there in the areas of the Navajo Nation is we have recreational sites. We see a lot of vandalism, unfortunately. So we keep an eye on that. It's against the law to vandalize anything out there across the Navajo Nation. And here's one of the biggies that we, the conservation officers, see nationwide, and it's not just with hunters, but with other places and other people across the Navajo Nation. But it is against the law, obviously, to litter while you're hunting or fishing. So one of the other questions we get asked is what happens to the animal once it's harvested. We get calls of people not taking all the meat, and it is against the law to abandon or permit to go to waste edible portions of big game, small game, waterfowl, and or game birds. And you can see a little bit later on, I've got a few pictures of poached animals where that's exactly what took place. So if you're going to go out and hunt and obviously kill one of these game animals for meat, it's your responsibility to pick the edible portions of those animals. So part of the regulations is going to be about bag limits, and let's kind of talk about what a bag limit is. A bag limit is the number of certain type of animal you can harvest in a day. Obviously, a lot of people are interested right now in the deer season, the elk season, and when those permits are issued out from our department is to take just one animal, and it's going to be specific into male or female. But some of the other bag limits may be in regards to the different types of hunting, which might be for quail or waterfowl or some of those other animals, where a certain number of those animals can only be taken per day. And so obviously it's going to be against the law to take more than what your permit is allotted for. So when you get your permits in the mail, part of that is it's called a carcass tag. So when you harvest an animal, that needs to be attached to the animal, so that when it's in transport, that if you run into law enforcement, that we're going to know that it's tagged. And it's one of the requirements when you harvest an animal, that's one of the immediate thing to do is to tag your animal. So part of the laws talk about evidence of legality when it's in regards to the sex of the animals. So like for elk hunting and deer hunting, that's the majority of the sex where part of that animal needs to get attached to the carcass for removal from the field, or an antlerless elk. And so part of that animal has to be still attached when up until when you get home to process the meat. Kind of an example I was just kind of talking about, say you have an antlerless elk permit and you get a cow, bring out the head so that we know that's exactly what you've killed is a cow elk versus a bull elk. So we're going to talk a little bit about hunting privileges. Kind of talked about it for just a little bit. Any person 12 years age or older may hunt on the Navajo Nation when properly permitted. So hunting privileges can be suspended or revoked for violations and non-compliance with regulations here on the Navajo Nation and or through the states, as Ms. Howard stated, through the Western State Compact. And there's a little bullet about that. So one of the things that's enacted here on the Navajo Nation is individuals, if they receive a citation, even if it's a written warning in the field for breaking one of our game laws, to restore hunting privileges back on the reservation, it's a requirement to successfully retake a hunter's education class. Permits and tags. So we kind of talked about it just a little bit. So if you're issued a big game permit and you harvest an animal, that permit or that tag or that carcass tag is basically giving you legal possession of that game animal. And so we require that upon kill that you immediately fill that out, attached to the animal. That way it's got the date and time of kill, and it actually at that point makes that animal in the permittee's possession. So when these permits are issued out, they're issued out for one individual, and by law they can't be loaned out to another individual or sold. It's specifically issued out for that one individual. So when you receive your permit in the mail, to make it a legal permit, there's a portion on there where you sign attested to the information is true and correct, and that it's you, the one that's going to be hunting with that permit. And on the back of those permits, it's printed that you're going to abide by the Navajo Nation laws and rules through our hunting and trapping regulation booklet and hunting proclamation. So you're basically attesting once you sign that permit that you're going to abide by the rules and laws to hunt on the Navajo Nation. So what can you kind of expect in the field when you might run into a ranger or one of us conservation officers? We're going to want to see your license, the tag, and your hunter education card if you're born after 1970. If you've harvested an animal, we're going to inspect your animal for proper tagging, make sure that it's the proper animal for that tag. And if you have questions in the field, you know, that's a great time to have a great encounter with the conservation officers for that particular hunt or for any other thing you have questions on. And a lot of times we'll help you out if you're needing a little help on trying to find some of these animals. So what can happen if a person breaks the law? So we have a little bit of discretion. You know, if an officer may choose to warn the violator depending on what the violation is. One of the common violations, especially for new people hunting on the Navajo Nation, is they get a little confused about signing their permit to validate it. A lot of times we take that as an educational opportunity, especially if they haven't harvested out. Make sure they sign it and make them valid, and just kind of explain the process to them again. Our job is to get more compliance out of everybody versus trying to cite them into court or to take enforcement action. Well, I think we get a little bit better. Obviously, we're going to take enforcement action on major violations, but gaining compliance out of people in the field is a main goal. And I think an educational law goes a long ways. So we can issue a citation. You might lose some of your equipment, and we can also take the game animal away from you. So it's incumbent when you go out there to hunt to kind of know the laws first, so that you don't have a negative encounter with one of us. So some of the common game laws, I'll try to go through some of these. Obviously, is unlawful taking of game and fish, and that's usually either somebody without a permit, hunting the wrong time of day, not following the rules and regulations, taking of wrong game. Then again, itself also, when you take something illegal, you're also not just taking it illegal, you're also in possession. So now it's not just one charge, it's two charges. So it's best to learn all the laws and ask questions before you go out. So under Navajo Nation law, songbirds are illegal to take. Most of them are federally protected as well, not just on the Navajo Nation, but also through federal law. We do get requests, but unfortunately we do not allow the take of any type of songbirds. So our fur-bearing animals are going to be like coyotes and bobcats. You have to have a permit for taking any of those. So it's also unlawful for taking in possession of hawks and vultures and owls. A lot of those fall under endangered species on the federal level. Kind of discussed about taking a small game without a permit, destruction of property out in the field, hunting without a permit, illegal possession of that game animal. On this slide, there's one of the laws that fairly frequent that we run into in the field during our rifle hunts is somebody in a motor vehicle traveling down the road with a loaded firearm, having a round in the chamber. It's dangerous, it's illegal. And then last bullet on there is for illegal tagging. You know, a lot of times people forget to put their tag on their animal, and it's one of the first things that needs to be done. Unlawful hunting from a motor vehicle. As you saw in that one picture, we get people out in the woods riding around in the back of the trucks. Next one underneath there, hunting off an ATV or a snowmobile. We do not allow hunting from an ATV or a UTV, except by permit, special permit for our disabled hunters, and that comes from our department manager. The only thing we allow ATV uses for is retrieving a downed animal, because it's the same provision as using your vehicle to retrieve a downed animal. No shooting from the roads, not shooting with spotlights, that's people at night. One of the most common violations that we run into is during a rifle season. It's required that rifle hunters and any of their people with them wear fluorescent orange. And the reason for that is fluorescent orange is not a natural occurring color in the wild. And so that color is usually readily identifiable at distances. And we require that for anybody hunting on a rifle hunt here on the Navajo Nation. Hunter education is, again, anybody born after 1970 is required to have hunter education and carry proof of that while they're hunting. We kind of discussed a little bit about proof of sex and why it's important to have that still with the animal till you get it home. At times we have people out there during say an archery elk hunt or an archery deer hunt, and they've got a rifle with them. It's illegal to have that in possession even during your hunt. Permit transfer, and that's, I talked about it a little bit, is you can't, when that permit is issued directly to you, and you can't loan that out to another family member or a friend. That permit is specifically for you. Wrong game means that if it's illegal to harvest an animal, let's say you're hunting and you shoot an elk, permits are specific for that game species, and not having your permit on that transportation on the end there, having your animal properly tagged. So you, as a hunter, if you harvest an animal, on this next bullet for donation, a lot of people are asking for deer and jerky or want some meat. Once you give somebody that game animal, they've got to have a lawful way to possess it. And one way to do that is through a donation. So if you write them a note claiming that I give so-and-so some of my elk meat from that I harvested with this permit from the Navajo Nation, that gives that person that's receiving that meat lawful possession at that point. If I kind of confuse somebody on that, I'm sorry. So the next one on here is a guide permit. Only Navajo tribal members can apply for and become a guide on the Navajo Nation. And so we run into individuals at times that are on the Navajo Nation that are not guides, and there's a guide process to become a guide on the Navajo Nation. It's an application process, and we've got rules in regards to who can be with them, how they can become a guide, because it is a business. It's regulated through us. So Dr. Shabala had mentioned a little bit about game units. So the Navajo Nation is split up into 16 big game management units. And it's a lot of times when we're issuing out certain permits, those permits are only good within that specific game unit. So one of the common violations that we run into is people not really knowing where they're supposed to be hunting at, or they choose not to hunt in their particular unit, and we catch them in the wrong unit. And that's where it comes into knowing the location, so that you're hunting in the right area, and or knowing when the season is going on this last one, so that you're hunting during the proper season. Exceeding the bag limit, that's taken more than one animal or one or more animals than what your permit allots. We see quite a bit of littering, and one of the ones we're really pretty hard on is you're not allowed to be consuming alcohol or have alcohol in possession while hunting. We have a lot more regulations, and that's why I'm trying to do the best I can to kind of get through a lot of them for you all. But that's why it's going to be good to get the booklets from us, the proclamations from us, review them for yourself, and then if you have questions, reach out, because this is what we run into at times. Is we have poaching cases where we have people that aren't permitted, and they're going out in the field and they're hard taking animals. And basically what they're doing is they're stealing from each other, stealing from us, because they're not permitted. So a lot of times what happens is we get out here and this is what we have. We have a carcass, and maybe not even all the carcass. And so now we got to start putting pieces together as to who possibly had taken this animal. I had mentioned earlier about not taking all the meat. This is a prime example of a poached animal where they just took only portions and not the whole animal for consumption. And just like with any other crime scene, conservation officers have to put the pieces together. Just like any other type of crime scene, we look and see what's going on out in the field, collecting of evidence, hopefully match it up and make a case to presentable for the courts. And just like with other cases out on the Navajo Nation that usually public safety and CI deal with, violating game laws on the Navajo Nation, potentially depending on the nature of crime and actions of the poaching itself, could go into a major crime and end up in federal court. It could fall under the Lacey Act, Migratory Bird Treaty Act, if it's having to do with killing of eagles or eagle feather stuff. It could end you up under charges under the Golden Eagle Act. And again, you know, like I mentioned, we have songbirds and other wildlife that are endangered, that potentially, if you go out and kill those, you could end up in federal court. I'm going to change gears just a little bit in regards to laws, but it is relevant because we do deal with a lot of bird stuff here on the Navajo Nation, unlawful and illegal take. But we do have processes too for obtaining feathers legally. Raptors are described as birds of prey. They're not only protected here on the Navajo Nation, but they're also federally protected. Again, there's quite a bit of a demand for feathers through a criminal element. And so we have quite a few birds get poached out here on the Navajo Nation. So Native Americans can legally possess raptor feathers by permit, or legally possessed from gifts and or natural cast feathers. So just to kind of go over that just a little bit more, here at the Navajo Nation, our zoo We have a permitting process for getting eagle feathers. And you can also go through U.S. Fish and Wildlife to get eagle feathers through their eagle repository. That is one way to receive eagle feathers. Also feathers that are legally possessed that have been passed on from one person to the next. And then feathers, say if you're out walking, you find a naturally cast feather that is molted off of an eagle, you can possess those and collect those. Non-natives are not allowed to possess eagle and raptor feathers except by permit. So we have a wide range of raptors here on Navajo Nation. We have bald eagles, golden eagles, hawks and owls, and all are protected here on the Navajo Nation and by federal law. Again, here's the application to obtain feathers through the department and through U.S. Fish and Wildlife. They have a lot more information on the websites where you can fill out those. And so one of the other things that we commonly run into is human-wildlife conflicts, and we'll kind of go over a little bit of that. As roads are built, houses are built, wildlife and human are going to start having more and more interaction around each other and or conflict. And we're no different here on the Navajo Nation as developments happen, roads are built. Most of the time wildlife don't want to be around us and they're going to stay away. But a lot of times, at times they're going to have human wildlife interaction. Roadways are one of the biggest issues where we have deer and or elk involved in collisions on our highways. So one of the things we can do as law enforcement is we can donate those animals out to people wanting to take those animals to either for the meat or the hide or parts of. But we need to know about it so we can respond out there and we can fill out a donation form to give those people the animal. What happens at times is people may just take that animal and basically you're putting yourself in unlawful possession of that animal. But this donation form would give you permission as a permit from the department to have that in possession. So one of the other things that we have is a human wildlife conflict with livestock. And one of the questions asked is if they can shoot the animals that are attacking their livestock and what the law is. So the law is if you are protecting your livestock that is actively being attacked, yes, you can shoot that coyote, you can shoot that bear, you can shoot that mountain lion while it's in the process of attacking your livestock. If you do that, you need to notify us right away so we can come out there and assess the scene and confirm that that's what's happening. If you have those predators just kind of hanging out in the area, that does not give you justification just to shoot them. So they have to be actively attacking your livestock for you to shoot them. So our predators that we typically run into are cougars, our bears, coyotes, and we have a lot of feral dogs. And occasionally we have sightings or of wolves. So one of our jobs is to come out there and kind of figure out what is damaging the livestock and make a determination, and what we go from there. So we assess the tracks. Is it dog? Is it coyote? Is it bear? And then based off of that, depends on what's going on. If we're just getting sightings kind of in the area, but no livestock damage, we may just leave that animal alone. It may just venture off on its own. We may capture it and relocate it. But if it's done livestock damage, we're probably going to depredate it. And again, if it's actively attacking your livestock, you as a livestock owner have a right to shoot and kill that animal. But we need to know about it so we can come out and determine what happened. That's pretty much what I have in regards to the rules and the laws. The natural resources of these animals are some of the Navajo Nation's most prized possessions. And these laws are set in place to kind of help protect populations of them from overharvest. And I hope I've answered some people's questions or given enough insight. They can contact our office later on to learn a little bit more about it. Here's our department phone number, our natural resource dispatch landline, and Operation Game Thief. And I thank you for your time. And again, if you guys have any questions, reach out to the department or one of the other officers, and hopefully we can answer and help you along with having a successful hunt.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining this webinar on hunting on the Navajo Nation. My name is Gloria Tom. I'm the Department Manager for the Navajo Nation's Department of Fish and Wildlife. And I'm Tordich Eatney, born for Touch Eatney, and I make my home in St. Michael's, Arizona. I want to welcome you to my presentation on the Navajo Nation Department of Fish and Wildlife's annual Youth Hunt project. I'd like to go through a PowerPoint presentation on the project. As mentioned, the project is entitled the Annual Youth Hunt, and it's a project that we've been doing now every year since 2005. The Navajo Nation Annual Youth Hunt is designed for Navajo youth between the ages of 12 and 16 years old. And these are youth that have an interest in the outdoors and learning to hunt, but they have no one to teach them at home. This particular project is our department's hunt mentoring program, where our department employees, along with a few outsiders, serve as mentors to youth that are selected each year. The project entails formal training in hunter education and also in firearm handling and firearm safety. After the required trainings are completed, the youth is treated to a 3-day mule deer hunt, and that usually takes place in the month of September. I might want to mention here that this annual youth hunt is a little bit different from our regular youth hunts, where we offer regular hunts for Navajo youth in elk and deer. Those regular hunts are not mentored by the department. These are hunts that are designed to allow the youth to go hunting with their parents, their grandparents, or other family members. The mission of this annual youth hunt project is to pass on the heritage of the hunting tradition to our Navajo kids. And it's basically to introduce our Navajo youth to the outdoors and provide an alternative to drugs, alcohol, gangs, TV, and video games. The goals of this project are many. The first is we want to help youth appreciate the game and the wildlife that we have here on the Navajo Nation. We also want to introduce the youth to the sport of hunting. We want to promote safe, ethical hunting practices. We want to provide shooting and outdoor skill development and provide safe firearm handling training for the individual. Other goals include providing opportunities to participate in conservation efforts, provide basic outdoor survival training, establish a hunt mentor opportunity for adults, and promote wildlife management principles. For this particular project, we have many contributors and many sponsors and many volunteers, and that's what makes this happen every year. These sponsors donate their hunting apparel for all the youngsters in the project. They get camouflage clothing, jackets, thermals, socks, boots, caps, and hunting vests. They also receive sleeping bags, backpacks, binoculars, Leatherman tools, survival kits, food. The food and the cooks are volunteers and donated by our sponsors. And the event is filmed every year on a nationally televised TV show from the Outdoor Channel, and that currently is the the Bone Collector Show, starring Michael Waddell. How this all started, back in the early 2000s, one of our wildlife conservation officers was parked at a trading post on the Navajo Nation, and he was doing some paperwork in his vehicle. And he was parked next to the trading post, and right next door was a housing area. And there was a young boy that came over to talk to him because he noticed the Fish and Wildlife Department seal on the vehicle that the game warden was sitting in. And so he came over and started asking questions about that seal because it has a picture of a bear and also a rainbow trout. And the youngster started asking questions about the bear and the trout. And the conversation turned to hunting, and the officer was explaining to the young boy his role in regulating the hunting that takes place on the Navajo Nation. And the young boy made a statement to that officer saying, I really want to learn to hunt. I want to know how to camp. I want to be out, learn to be outdoors, but I don't have anybody at home to teach me. And so that kind of put an idea in that game warden's mind. And as a department, he brought it forward to us, and we talked about it, and we planned it, and we decided to host a mentoring program so that our employees who hunt can teach our Navajo youth how to hunt. We started doing a fundraising effort, and we found that there are a lot of national and local vendors and organizations that are willing to contribute to such an event. And so we were able to fundraise for our first hunt, which happened in 2005. At that time, we recruited 20 Navajo youth, and we took them through the training program, the hunter education class, and then also the firearm range training. And we took them on a 3-day mule deer hunt in the Carrizo Mountain in 2005. And that started our youth hunt program, and it's been happening ever since, except in 2020 when the pandemic hit and we had to cancel the event in 2020. And then in 2021, we just recently held our hunt, but it was a much scaled down event than what we have previously hosted in the past. Our mentors, our adult mentors, are primarily personnel from the Navajo Nation Department of Fish and Wildlife. Many of us are avid hunters, we're avid sportsmen and sportswomen. We are very knowledgeable and trained in outdoor life. And the unique thing about this project is it also provides us with an opportunity to expose and teach our Navajo youth about careers in wildlife management and fisheries. We try to use this project to mentor them in career choices in natural resource management, wildlife management, and we've had a few of those individuals come back and pursue educational degrees in this field. We also have mentors that assist us from outside the Navajo Nation. Some of these partner agencies have been working with us since 2005. The first being the Arizona Game and Fish Department personnel. And we've also had mentors come from the United States Fish and Wildlife Service. So our adult mentors are also key to making this a successful project for our Navajo youth. The mentor duties are many. First of all, it's up to the mentor to work with the Navajo youth to establish a one-on-one working relationship with each other. The mentor is responsible for teaching the Navajo youth the basics of ethical hunting and outdoor life. The mentor is also responsible for teaching the youngster the basics of firearms and the safe handling of firearms. They're also responsible for promoting personal wellness, promoting the sport of hunting and its traditions, and educating the youngster on career choices. Other duties include assisting the youth hunter in obtaining their hunter's education certification. And we do host one hunter's education class specifically for the annual youth hunt participants. And then they are also responsible for helping the youth hunter in successful completion of the 2 firearm range days that are required in this project. So the requirements are that, first of all, the youth hunter has to be a Navajo tribal member with a census number. They have to be between the ages of 12 to 16 years of age, and they must have never hunted before. And there is an application packet that they have to complete. The first part of that is the actual annual youth hunt application. And then there's the requirement of a 1-page essay. On that essay, we want to hear from the youngster on, first of all, why they don't have that opportunity to learn from someone at home. And we also want to know what their level of interest is in hunting and camping and being outdoors. And then the third component of that is they have to complete a Navajo Nation big game hunt application and provide 2 references, adult references who can speak on behalf of the youngster that's applying. In terms of the hunter education requirements, Navajo Nation law requires that anyone born after January 1st, 1970, they must have successfully completed a hunter's education course before they can hunt on the Navajo Nation. In that class, the main topics that are taught are the ethics of hunting, wildlife management, and it talks about the carrying capacity of big game in relation to other resources on the landscape, water, food, shelter, etc. And then another component of the class is outdoor survival and first aid, firearm safety, and then hunting methods and hunting techniques. That class is a 16-hour class of instruction, classroom instruction, and then about 4 hours of field day, which includes a rifle range portion of the field day. So all in all, we're looking at about 20 hours for that class. The youth hunter is also required to complete 2 firearm range practice days, and these are usually held 2 separate Saturdays in August. And again, the main focus is to practice handling and shooting large caliber firearms. And the youth hunter is at that time working directly with their mentor in shooting the actual firearm that they will use during their hunt. The calibers that we work with are .243 and .270 firearms. For the 2021 annual youth hunt, we were originally scheduled to host that at the end of September, but because of the current pandemic, we had to postpone that, and we were successful in completing the youth hunt October 8th through the 10th. And as I mentioned earlier, this was a much smaller scaled down version of what we usually do. We usually have a huge hunt camp. In 2019, that hunt camp was held at the Camp Ahe'hee next to Ahe'hee Lake. And at that time, we had 15 Navajo youth that were hunting. We had a whole slew of volunteers, cooks, people that ran the camp, and then our mentors. We had probably over 60 individuals at camp during the 2019 event. In 2021, we scaled down that event. We went with, instead of the 15, we went with 8 youth hunters. And these youth hunters basically worked individually with their mentors. They camped at Camp Ahe'hee, but there was no big camp there. It was just mainly the mentors and the hunters. And they hunted from Camp Ahe'hee that weekend, and we had a 100% harvest success rate, meaning all of the 8 youth hunters tagged out. They all got their deer. They were responsible for skinning and butchering their animals and preparing the meat and placing them in a freezer that the meat was later delivered to the youth hunter's family after the meat was frozen. We incorporated this year a traditional hunting component. We received assistance from the Heritage and Historic Preservation Department, and they worked with us on the traditional hunting knowledge. That we did a presentation at the hunter education class on that topic, as well as our mentors were somewhat familiar with some of the traditional ways to prepare the hide and also the meat. That is something that we will incorporate in this project as we move forward from 2021. Another component of this year was the natural resource management education classes that we held in the field for the youth hunters, and primarily for the purpose of career exposure and environmental education. And this component was funded by a U.S. Forest Service grant that we received for this project. These are just a few photos of this past annual youth hunt. As I mentioned, all 8 hunters were successful in harvesting their deer, and a few of these photos show some of the hunting gear that are donated to the kids each year. And then there's also some education classes that are held in the field. If you would like more information on this project or any topic pertaining to Fish and Wildlife, this is our contact information. And we do have a website, and that address is shown on the screen as well. And I'd like to thank you for your time this afternoon. Thank you.
Of our hunting webinar. Unfortunately, due to technical difficulties, we are having issues with the last presentation, which was big game management by Jessica Fort. We will, however, still post the link to the presentation on the OPVP Communications YouTube channel. You may access it there. I'm sorry, it's just technical difficulties. We were unable to connect the audio to the presentation, but we will provide that for you. Again, the Office of the First Lady and Second Lady, we thank you for tuning in today and joining us here. All recordings will be available on the OPVP Communications YouTube channel for future viewing. You may also access past webinars also on the OPVP YouTube channel. And so thank you again to our presenters. Thank you to the Navajo Nation Division of Natural Resources, Dr. Shabala, Gloria, Tom, and all your staff. Thank you for everyone being here with us today, as well as Mr. Davis Wilford, Mike Colonna, and of course Dr. Shabala for sharing their